Hello and welcome to the first video of my channel. I'm an Everton fan, as you can see, and we will be doing lots of football content, including Premier League predictions, which is this video, my first video. We will also be going to Everton matches. So let's start off with Premier League predictions. So, first of all, the first game, Newcastle against Brentford. Last week, Newcastle beat Fulham 4-1. Now, I must say that these City refs, need to stop handing out stupid red cards when they're only watching them back in slow motion, because they could look like a red card and a serious leg break in slow motion, but they might not in real speed. That's the problem. And the same happened in the North London derby, which we'll talk about later. The other team who we're talking about here, Newcastle against Brentford. So Brentford last week, they drew to Bournemouth 0-0. They're looking to get a win. But I've gone 2-1 to Newcastle. I think Newcastle will just edge it. I think Newcastle will be the better side on the day. The next game, is Bournemouth against Leicester City. Bournemouth, as we said, they drew 0-0, and it sounds like one of the 4 draws. On the other hand, Leicester, they beat Forest 4-0. So Rodgers looks like he's going to survive for another week. In this game, though, I've gone for Bournemouth 0, Leicester 2. Manchester City against Southampton. I mean, we know Erling Haaland's probably the GOAT now, and we know about that Manchester derby. 6-3, highest scoring Manchester derby. The record highest scoring Manchester derby. That's the record now. So yeah, I think Southampton last week, they lost to us, they lost to Everton. I think Ralph Hasenhüttl might be under pressure if he doesn't do well. So I think they need a win, but I think Manchester City will just batter them 7-0. Could be another 9-0 incoming though. Chelsea against Wolves. Last week, Chelsea scored a late winner thanks to Conor Gallagher. They beat Crystal Palace 2-1. So, yeah, sounds like that Gallagher's strike was apparently it was a good goal. I didn't watch it, so I only watched the Manchester derby and that was it. But yeah, also Wolves last week, they lost to West Ham 2-0, and Bruno Lage has been sacked. Wolves looking for a new manager bounce, but I do not think that will come against Chelsea. I think Chelsea will win this one 2-0, and it will be a comfortable win for the Blues. Brighton against Tottenham. Now, last week, Brighton drew to Liverpool 3-3 in a game where the new Brighton boss couldn't have dreamt for anything better. A draw away away at Anfield to Liverpool. I mean, yeah. So I think he's delighted to get them 3 goals, a positive performance, a point away from home against Liverpool, one of the best teams in the league. But they're up against Spurs, Kane and Son, and Richarlison and Kulusevski. I think this will be a tough one. Spurs played last week and they lost to Arsenal in the North London derby. Now, we've spoken about red cards. I think that this will be Brighton 2, Spurs 3. I think it'll be 5-goal thriller. West Ham United against Fulham now. London derby. West Ham last week beat Wolves in a much-needed 3 points, much-needed win. But they're up against Fulham in this London derby. Last week, Fulham lost at home to Newcastle. Think it could be rough for Fulham. I think it could be a long day for Fulham. I have gone for West Ham 2, Fulham 0. We now move on to Crystal Palace against Leeds. Now, last week, Crystal Palace, we've spoken about them. They unfortunately lost to Chelsea by that Conor Gallagher screamer. But they're up against Leeds now, very different test. Leeds last week drew to Aston Villa, 0-0, and apparently the ref was crap. Now, my prediction will be Palace 1, Leeds 1. We now move on to Arsenal against Liverpool. Right, I know I'm an Everton fan, but every time I predict Liverpool, I'm going to try not to be biased. But Liverpool, they've just drawn to Brighton. I know they've beat Rangers 2-0 in the Champions League, but they don't play anyone decent. They don't play anyone half decent, do they? Name me a good team who are contenders for the Champions League in Scotland. No. So I think, unfortunately, Arsenal will beat Liverpool 2-1. And I hope Liverpool start winning again. And I know people who support Liverpool as well. The next game what we're going to talk about is Everton against Manchester United. Now, I'm going to try not to be biased, but Manchester United, last time I checked the score, in fact, let's check it now. Manchester United are playing someone in the Europa League. So Manchester United, they're beating, Man United are beating that team, Romania, 3-2. But last week in the Premier League, they absolutely got battered 3-2 to Manchester City. And Malacia was dreadful. Let's talk about some of their players, actually, because we haven't got to talk about them. Hang on. So last week, McTominay awful, Eriksen awful, Bruno awful, Rashford crap. I mean, I feel sorry for Man United. But that leads us on swiftly to my club, Everton. We've been on a good run of form recently, beating West Ham at home and Southampton away. I think we'll come away with a 1-0 win by a dodgy Damari Gray goal. So yeah. Finally, we've got Nottingham Forest against Aston Villa. Now, Forest, Steve Cooper must be under pressure. Must be. He must go if he gets the sack. They are playing Aston Villa. Aston Villa last week, Steven Gerrard must be under pressure as well. The El Sacico is happening. Last week, Villa drew to Leeds. Last week, Forest lost to Leicester 4-0. I've gone for Forest 1, Villa 3. I've got to go for it. Right. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll try and invite guests on. And yeah. See you later.